is Pre-Algebra Lesson 2.4. It's page 67 on your book. This is your textbook and not the note-taking book. And this is a picture of the Blue Man Group that was very popular when my oldest son was in high school, and they did really cool things on stage, but the most unique was the fact that they were all painted in blue. And so we could come up with a math problem. We could say that 21 tickets to the Blue Man Group cost a total of $761.25. So you would have to calculate how much does each ticket cost. But we're working with decimals, just like we multiplied decimals in the lesson before this. We now are going to be dividing decimals. So we would take $761.25. We would divide it by 21. I ran out of room here, so I'm going to go to the next screen, and I'll put it up here so that we can 25 and divide it by 21. And we can start, so this is a whole number. We can start working out our division problem. 21 will go into 76 3 times. And that's going to come to 63. Again, we want to make sure we keep everything nicely lined up. And that answer is, it's going to leave 13 and 1. So now we have 131. And 21 will go in there, let's see, 6 times. We have to put the decimal here. It has to go there. And that would 126 on that one. And then we have a remainder of 5. We got to carry down the 2. 21 goes into 52 two times. So that'll be 42. That leaves 10. We have a 5 to carry down. So that's 105, and that's 21. That's going to be even there, and that's 0. So what we have here, the answer was 36.25. And we just always line up the decimal place. And we keep all of our columns. It's really hard to do on this iPad, but keep everything lined up, because if you get off here, it's going to mess your answer up. You can also we can check our answer. We can round here, 21. We can round up to 20, or down to 20. And 761, we can round to 760. We can divide 760 by 20. To check our answer, we get 38, and we can see that that's, we're in the ballpark if we have 38 here and 36.25 there. So we can say that that's fairly reasonable, or at least we're not too far off. So on another example, 21.1 divided by 3. We put it in proper format down here so that we can calculate it. We have 3 goes into 20 6 times. I'm going to already put my decimal point there so that I don't lose track of it. I have 18 from 20 is 2. I'm going to bring down my 1, and 3 goes into 21 7 times, and my answer is 6.7. I could see how my answer works out here, just rounding up 0 and, oh, sorry, I did that wrong. It would be 60, sorry. And I can see that 60 and 3 is going to be 6.0 is relatively close to that. So my answer is right. Now, if you have to divide a decimal by a decimal, in this case 8.75 divided by 12.5, the thing you have to remember is you have to move the decimal point here over to here, and when you do that, you got to move it over here. So this becomes 125 into 87.5. And if we work that out, we end up, our answer is 0.7. Okay? So the important thing if you're dividing by decimal is you always have to move the decimal over. And then you have to move it over the same amount there. You have to move it over. You can't have a decimal in this area. It has to get over here. And then however many digits you have to move it over, you have to do the equal here, and then your decimal point would be there. Okay? Let's look at this example. 1.9 into 0.114. When we move the decimal over, we end up with 19. When we move the decimal the one place over here, we end up with 1.14. I can drop the 0 when I move it over. I don't have to, but I can. And then when I'm on 19, we'll go into 1.146 times. Let's see. But here's the kicker. Because this decimal point is right here, I have to use my plate. I have to put zeros there to hold the places. I can't eliminate those zeros. So just because I'm putting my answer the 6 here, I have to add the zeros there. Say you have buy a pack of 8 trading cards for $1.49, and you need to find the price of each card, and you need to round to the nearest cent. So let's look how we would do that example. So we would divide 149 by 8. I would set up my division problem. I would start my dividing. 8 goes into 14 one time. That would be 8. There, 8 from 14 is 6. I'm going to make sure that I get that there, and I have to put a 0 there because we had a 1 right here. So I have a placeholder 0. I have my decimal there. I have the 1 there. Now I bring down the 9. 8 goes into 69 8 times, so that would be 64 with a remainder of 5. And now I can add a 0 and bring a 0 down. And 8 would go into 48 times with a remainder of 2, and I would put a 6 up here. 8 times 6 was the 48 here. Now we can quit here. We don't have to keep going because we're in the thousandths place, so we can stop. And so we know that our answer then is 0.186, and we want to round to the nearest cent. So this we're going to round up because this is a 6, and so our answer is 19 cents. Okay. Now, just because you may be confused about this, why I added this 0, if you are rounding to the nearest cent or the nearest hundredth, you don't have to add the 0. But in this case, I wanted to go one step farther so I would know what number to round the 8 to. So I had to get this answer here, which required me putting a 0 there and then doing this part of the equation. So depending on where you have to round to will tell you where you can quit when you're dividing decimals and talking about money.